From the bone-rattling roar of spinning propeller blades to the industrial thunder of supercharged radial engines, these are the machines that turned peaceful skies into mechanical war zones. We start our list with propeller-driven monsters.
Tupolev T-95 Bear, the loudest propeller aircraft ever built. 8 contra-rotating props on 4 engines create a sound so violent it can be detected by sonar underwater. Ground crews require double hearing protection just to survive the ramp. XF-84H Thunderscreech, legendary for making ground crew physically sick. The supersonic prop tips generated a continuous sonic boom that caused nausea and headaches. Test pilots called it the most dangerous experimental aircraft ever. Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, a massive radial engine wrapped in a fighter. The supercharged Pratt & Whitney R2800 produced a distinctive deep roar that announced its presence from miles away during World War II combat operations. B-29 Superfortress, 4 massive Wright R3350 engines turning huge props. Formation takeoffs would rattle windows for miles, and crews suffered permanent hearing damage despite primitive ear protection during those long Pacific bombing missions.
Antonov A-22, the world's largest turboprop transport. 4 massive Kuznetsov engines with contra-rotating props create a wall of low-frequency noise that shakes buildings and can be felt in your chest from a mile away. Lockheed EC-121 Warning Star, 4 radial engines screaming at full power for hours. The Wright R3350 engines produced such persistent noise that entire communities near radar patrol bases filed formal complaints throughout the Cold War era. Bristol Brabazon, 8 coupled piston engines driving massive contra-rotating props. This experimental British giant was abandoned partly because the acoustic signature was deemed unacceptable for civilian operations over populated areas. Douglas A-1 Skyraider, the Wright R3350 radial at combat power produced a distinctive angry snarl. Navy pilots loved the sound, but carrier deck crews lost significant hearing from repeated close-range exposure to full-throttle launches. But propellers were just the beginning.
When jet engines replaced propellers, the world discovered an entirely new dimension of acoustic pain. These turbine-powered monsters turned airports into war zones and made entire neighborhoods uninhabitable. English Electric Lightning, twin afterburning Rolls-Royce Avons screaming at full reheat. The high-frequency shriek during vertical climbs could shatter windows and triggered countless noise complaints that eventually restricted operations at British airbases. McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom II, 2 massive J-79 turbojets with straight-through exhaust. The distinctive Banshee scream during afterburner takeoffs made it the loudest fighter of the Vietnam era, causing permanent hearing damage to countless deck crews. Concorde, 4 Olympus engines with primitive noise suppression. Takeoff noise exceeded 120 decibels at the fence line, leading to nighttime bans and route restrictions that ultimately contributed to the program's economic failure. North American F-100 Super Sabre, the first operational supersonic fighter, brought piercing jet scream to airbases worldwide. The Pratt & Whitney J-57 at full afterburner produced noise levels that forced base realignments away from communities. Convair F-106 Delta Dart, a single massive J-75 engine with an afterburner, created a distinctive roar. Air Defense Command interceptor scrambles would wake entire towns, leading to sound barriers and curfews at northern border bases.
BAC TSR-2, 2 afterburning Olympus engines in a sleek supersonic bomber. Test flights generated so many noise complaints that the British government faced political pressure, contributing to the controversial program cancellation in 1965. Lockheed F-104 Starfighter, the J-79 engine in a missile with wings. The high-pitched scream during afterburner acceleration was so distinctive that communities could identify Starfighter operations versus other jets by sound alone. Republic F-105 Thunderchief, the largest single-engine fighter ever built. The Pratt & Whitney J-75 at full power produced a deep, violent roar that dominated Southeast Asian skies and permanently damaged the hearing of ground crews. Mikoyan-Gurevich MiG-21, simple, brutal, and screaming loud. The Tomansky turbojet with afterburner created the signature sound of Cold War confrontation, heard across borders and throughout every conflict from Vietnam to the Middle East. From fighters to cargo haulers, the noise only got worse.
When you need to move massive cargo, you need massive engines. These aerial trucks turned multiple turboprops or jets into synchronized symphonies of industrial-grade noise that shook entire communities. Lockheed C-130 Hercules, 4 Allison T-56 turboprops screaming in harmony. The distinctive low-frequency rumble can be felt in your chest from miles away, and assault landings at full power have been known to crack plaster in nearby structures. Antonov AM-12, the Soviet answer to tactical airlift. 4 massive Ivchenko turboprops create a bone-shaking roar that announces military operations from incredible distances. Eastern European communities still recognize the sound decades after the Cold War. Lockheed C-5 Galaxy, 4 massive General Electric TF-39 turbofans producing over 60 million pounds of thrust. The sheer volume of air being moved creates a rumble that rattles windows for miles and makes conversation impossible near the flight line. Boeing C-17 Globemaster 3, 4 Pratt & Whitney F-117 engines at max power shake the ground during tactical departures. The low-frequency thunder from assault takeoffs has triggered car alarms and set off building security systems at military bases worldwide.
Antonov A-22, 4 Kuznetsov NK-12 engines driving contra-rotating props. This is the loudest production turboprop ever built, creating a sound pressure level that requires double hearing protection for ground crews working the cargo ramp. Kawasaki C2, Japan's modern transport, is surprisingly loud. 2 General Electric CF6 engines optimized for short field performance create unexpected noise levels that forced operational restrictions at Japanese self-defense force bases near residential areas. Airbus A400M Atlas, 4 Europrop TP400 engines with 8-bladed props. The modern turboprops create a unique harmonic rumble that's actually louder than older transports, generating community complaints across European military installations. But nothing prepared the world for the supersonic revolution.
Breaking the sound barrier created more than just speed records. These supersonic machines shattered windows, cracked foundations, and generated lawsuits that changed aviation forever. Boeing 2707 SST, America's canceled supersonic dream, became a noise nightmare. Test data showed sonic booms would crack foundations, and community opposition was so fierce that Congress killed the entire program before a prototype ever flew over populated areas. Convair B-58 Hustler, 4 afterburning J-79 engines and a sustained supersonic cruise capability. The sonic boom from low-altitude supersonic runs cracked windows across multiple states, generating millions in damage claims that led to strict altitude restrictions. North American XB-70 Valkyrie, 6 massive engines and Mach 3 capability created devastating sonic booms. A single supersonic pass over Oklahoma City in 1964 generated over 9,000 damage claims and effectively ended any hope of supersonic bombers operating over land.
Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird, twin J-58 engines producing continuous sonic booms at Mach 3+. The afterburner thunder on takeoff exceeded 140 decibels, and the boom signature at cruise altitude could shatter greenhouse glass across entire valleys below. Tupolev T-144, the Soviet Concorde, was even louder. Primitive noise suppression and powerful Kuznetsov engines created takeoff noise so extreme that Western observers reported physical pain during the 1973 Paris Air Show before the fatal crash. McDonnell Douglas F-15 Eagle, 2 Pratt & Whitney F-100 engines with full afterburner create a sound described as violent. Alert scrambles from air defense bases generated so many noise complaints that communities sued successfully for flight path changes and time restrictions. Beyond speed, some aircraft were designed for pure intimidation.
During the Cold War, strategic bombers didn't just deliver nuclear deterrence. They projected power through sheer acoustic dominance, announcing their presence with a mechanical thunder that shook nations. Boeing B-52 Stratofortress, 8 Pratt & Whitney TF-33 turbofans creating a wall of sound. Formation takeoffs would rattle windows for 10 miles, and the distinctive rumble became the signature of American air power throughout the Cold War era. Convair B-36 Peacemaker, 6 pusher propellers and 4 jet engines combined. The hybrid power plant created the most complex noise signature ever, a layered industrial roar that announced nuclear capability from incredible distances across the American heartland.
Tupolev Tu-160 Blackjack, 4 massive NK-32 afterburning turbofans producing over 245,000 pounds of thrust. The Soviet strategic bomber's takeoff thunder was designed as psychological warfare, demonstrating overwhelming power to NATO observers across European borders.
Rockwell B-1B Lancer. 4 General Electric F-101 engines at full afterburner create apocalyptic noise. Low-altitude penetration training runs generated so many complaints that the Air Force eventually restricted most operations to designated low-level routes over unpopulated areas. Tupolev Tu-95 MS Bear. The strategic bomber variant with 4 NK-12 turboprops remains the loudest military aircraft in active service. The contra-rotating props create acoustic signatures detectable by submarine sonar, making stealth impossible, but intimidation guaranteed. Myasishchev M4 Bison, 4 massive Mikoyan turbojets mounted in the wing roots. Soviet strategic aviation at its loudest, with formations capable of announcing bomber streams from hundreds of miles away during Cold War alert operations. Boeing B-47 Stratojet, 6 General Electric J-47 turbojets screaming in unison. Strategic Air Command mass launches would shake entire air bases, and the collective roar from alert scrambles became synonymous with nuclear readiness throughout the 1950s. Modern engineering promised quieter skies, but some machines defied that promise.
Engineers promised noise reduction, but extreme performance demands created new acoustic nightmares. These modern and experimental aircraft proved that cutting-edge capability still comes with ear-splitting consequences. Bell Boeing V-22 Osprey. Twin tilt rotors with massive downwash create a mechanical hurricane. The rotor interactions during conversion generate unique harmonic noise that's actually louder than conventional helicopters, leading to operational restrictions at urban landing zones worldwide. Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning II. The most expensive fighter ever built is also shockingly loud. The Pratt & Whitney F-135 at full afterburner exceeds 152 decibels, forcing base realignments and generating ongoing lawsuits from communities surrounding deployment locations. Boeing X-32. The failed Joint Strike Fighter competitor was rejected partly for noise. The direct lift system for VTOL created such violent acoustic signatures during hover tests that engineers knew community acceptance would be impossible for widespread deployment. Sikorsky CH-53K King Stallion. 3 massive General Electric engines driving titanium rotor blades. The heavy-lift helicopter creates low-frequency rotor slaps so intense it triggers seismic sensors and has cracked windows during shipboard landing qualifications.
Northrop Grumman B-2 Spirit. Stealth doesn't mean quiet. 4 General Electric F-118 engines buried in the flying wing create unexpected acoustic reflections. The unique exhaust configuration produces a distinctive deep rumble that betrays the bomber's position despite radar invisibility. Bell X-1. The sound barrier breaker was deafening. The 4-chamber rocket engine screaming at full thrust created noise levels never before measured. Chuck Yeager reported physical pain from the acoustic assault inside the cramped cockpit during supersonic acceleration. Scaled Composites Stratolaunch. 6 Boeing 747 engines on the world's largest aircraft. The synchronized power plant creates such overwhelming low-frequency noise that test operations required expanded safety zones and acoustic measurements exceeded predictions by significant margins. Augusta-Westland AW609. The civilian tilt rotor promised business travel revolution but delivered noise complaints. The twin Pratt & Whitney turboprops in rotor mode create acoustic signatures incompatible with urban vertiport operations, limiting commercial viability significantly. To finish our list, we look at the absolute loudest,